Said,
Okay, I just turned myself off. So, welcome to the second installment of Four Bites, which is living up to its motto: every show only slightly better than the one before it. So, only up from here, I guess you could say. Um, Tonight, Michael Parkot, and let's see if I can actually do what I want to do here. Can you see that? Oh, wait, why am I asking you? You're muted. That work? Mike, did you see a video? Nobody saw a video. Okay, listen. This is only going to get better. Hang on. There's a video I got to get you to see, but first, I got to figure out how to do that. So I got to open it up. I know this is painful. It's painful for me too. Uh-huh. Okay, now I'm sharing the screen. Now you can see what I got going on. Oh, here we go. No? Yes? Did you see that? Okay. Well, look,
yes, we saw that.
that was better. And I was like, as botchy as this is, at least you get to see Mike Kidd ride a pig at the end, and that makes it kind of worth the journey. So, um, after that embarrassingly non-techie beginning, um, I will yield the floor. No, I won't yield anything. I'm here because I'm trying to get people like Mike Parkett in front of you people. I have gone out and met so many people who are up to so many things that are extraordinary. So, getting better week by week. This is going to try to be my venue to get you to meet some of these people, and you can ask them some questions, and you can learn things because you have a chance to ask a subject expert questions right on point. So, in the further improvements of the alleged 4 Bite show, I have an actual format now, right? I can actually tell you what to expect. Wild, right? So first, call it meat of the order. Mike and I are going to talk about some things that will expound upon his past and expertise and what he's doing now. And then at quarter past, the first quiz. After the first quiz is over and a prize is awarded, comes four balls. This is new. Four balls is the 4 Bites question segment where the same question is going to be asked to each guest, and it's up to them to swing away. Call four balls. I pitch them, you swing. And then at 8:45, well, and after that is the time in the show after we're done with four balls where I would really like you guys to take advantage of the chance you have to talk to somebody who's a subject expert like Mike, and he can talk about emergency medicine in emergency rooms or meat, but either way. At least medicine is vegan, so that's good. I am going to have a vegan guest on later to balance it out, the feng shui of the whole thing. Just we're going to get everybody going here. 8:45, second quiz, second prize is awarded, and then if there's anybody left, we can all swap stories about our favorite dishes if you want, or we can take off. I mean, you've been through a lot, and you showed up on no notice at all. I appreciate it. As I said in the note, this kind of short notice thing not going to be the way it goes around here, but I need a whole bunch of things to improve on. So, wow, a format, right? Pretty impressive, huh, Mike? Mr. Parkot?
Here you gotta stop screen sharing.
Hey, I'm going to stop screen sharing. See? There you go. Ladies and
All
gentlemen,
right.
Mike Parkot. Uh, why on earth did you start raising animals instead of just taking the money and being a medicine person? Please explain.
It really started like back when I was living in Ithaca. My wife Stephanie, she was working at Cornell in the small animal hospital, and one day somebody just showed up and dropped off a couple of baby chicks. These chickens that somebody had probably bought at Tractor Supply, they thought that they were just egg laying hens. They were Cornish Rock meat chickens. So pretty much every 4 to 5 days they double in size. And then we figured out shortly after that those were meat chickens and not egg layers. That turned into an experience where we decided, okay, we need to butcher these because those animals definitely have a finite life. And her grandfather, who grew up on a farm, which was not something that I did, he taught me how to butcher and he taught me how to process chickens. And that first chicken that we had raised, that we had cared for, just became such a foundational memory for me. And it was like, holy crap, I want to do this. Like this tastes like no chicken that I've ever had before. So
So you
then
took
it
care of
just
them and then you ate them and it was good.
it was, but it's also turned into way more than that.
Oh, in what way?
Well, people are just so disconnected from their food sources, and people don't understand what it takes in order to get things from literally from the farm, from the pasture, wherever you happen to be raising it, and where people just they don't understand the nuance of it. They also don't understand everything that can go into raising these animals and getting them ready for butcher and for harvest. People unfortunately have gotten to the point that they look at it and they see these commoditized meats that are really an exploitive nature, both in labor, but also of the animals. And it shows up in a neat little shrink wrapped styrofoam package at your local grocery store.
What do you
My
find as the
kids,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
the other thing is I want my kids to, my wife and I, like, as we were looking at this and as we were dating and we were driving back and forth between Ithaca to Buffalo to visit family, we started talking like, okay, we can see that this relationship's going somewhere. What are we going to do with this? Well, how do you want to live? And there was just like from early on, there was this whole idea of having a farm and doing this together. And the way that that's changed over the last like 13, 14 years has been really interesting. But we also wanted our kids to have that connection to their food, understand like the real intricacies of it and also the impact that they were having, like the intentionality of doing this. So, like the intentionality of every day you take care of that animal with the end goal in mind that you're going to be consuming it, or we're raising it for somebody else, and that deserves a special amount of care, or that deserves much more attention than what most people are willing to dedicate to their food. So that's kind of how we started out, and that's how we started out raising animals, and then it's just kind of twisted and gone from there.
So educational and also quality of meat reasons and things like that. Uh, you went through between then and now the number of stages in your level of meat production. If you could just briefly take us through some of the different ones over the years.
Sure. Initially, we started out when we started producing meat, not only for ourselves, but we were selling a little bit to other people. We started out, we had a small corner lot in Clarence, It was on less than an eighth of an acre, and we had a little homestead, and we were raising broiler chickens, rabbits, had a little greenhouse. And the other thing is like when I announced it, and I told people that I had some fresh chicken that had never been frozen, just processed by us, people jumped all over it. So that's where we started. About a year and a half later, we bought the farm in Darien, quite literally. And we've been out here, and it's been a project of kind of molding that and morphing it into the farm that we've wanted. Initially, we started out just with poultry. Then, about 3 years in, we added pigs. We've persistently had rabbits. We've also been doing a little bit of beef, mostly just for ourselves. And then we got real heavy into pigs. And right about the time that we got into pigs, the local scene with pigs had kind of shaken up as Tea Meadow had gone out of business or they had turned things over and decided to pursue different interests. And we were able to kind of get a foothold into the restaurant market. And we started really getting a lot of traction and everything leading up to COVID. Early on in the pandemic, things were really wild, but it exposed a lot of issues where people were feeling food insecurity and they were also home. So instead of being out at restaurants, all these activities with their kids, they were purchasing from people like us. And every farm in the area had a huge run on all their product. People were at home cooking. People were denoting like quality restaurants that were using our product and wanting that at home. So there's a couple of different ways that we've sold. One has been retail sales, which is full service USDA inspection. That's the most costly for us, but also for our customers because you're literally buying by the cut. And in order to get that to you, we're either driving to Pennsylvania, the Finger Lakes region, or possibly even further at this point. There's also the custom exempt option, which is done for people that are buying bulk animals or they're buying bulk products, which means that you're buying either like a half a pig, a quarter cow. You're really stocking up your freezer for the year, and access to that type of butchering is a lot easier. It's also, there's a lot more of butchers that are under that custom exempt labeling. Um, we've also done a lot of sales with restaurants on whole and half animals and primals, which are slaughtered under USDA, but they are not broken down. They are broken down by the restaurant partners that we work with. And they subsequently take it and do some meat crafting, which I've been fortunate enough to be included on occasion. And right now, we're mostly servicing those restaurant connections that we've worked with who've experienced. It seems like things are starting to pick back up for a lot of them, but things have changed quite a lot in that landscape as well over the past few years.
Seems like the best way at this point for people in the area who have freezer space and want to eat better, want to support local agriculture, local people raising animals. Really, at this point, the best way to go is get a quarter cow, a half a pig. To do that, typically you have to reach out and make an arrangement with the producer themselves. Some of them make it very easy with their websites and what you can pick out. And you make a deal to get a big assortment of different parts of animal all wrapped up in paper. You have to, store it obviously, but when you make this purchase, you can have enough meat for a quarter year or a half a year, depending on how many boys you have.
Don't want to know how much we go through. It's pretty ridiculous. Like at this point, we're probably at about, with three boys and myself and my wife. She eats the least by far, but we're up probably around two hogs and then probably a cow and a quarter, maybe a cow and a half, probably about 60 to 80 chickens and two to three turkeys as well. And
Talking about
if I had
eating,
to
not raising.
no, that's what my family goes through. But we're also we're pretty heavy on the carnivore end. But the other thing is our boys are also homeschooled, so we're literally cooking from scratch like 3 meals a day. That's the lifestyle that we live. So we
And
tend to
when
go through a lot.
you just mentioned the lifestyle that you live, and I have to just come clean with you people here. There's one of the reasons Always Something Farm is always going to hold a special place in my heart. It doesn't have anything to do with meat per se. So I thought I would mention this to kind of, get something for the vegetarians out there. Um, Stephanie makes, or did make at the time, yogurt from the milker that you had. There was so much milk coming out. She was like, I'm going to make gallons and gallons of yogurt, which was good, except that she had gallons and gallons of yogurt. And we made a deal where I got a gallon of the yogurt and I drained it down into Greek yogurt. And I was able to make tzatziki from this Greek yogurt made from one cow on one field. And I got to season it with chives from the field because your kid sold me a bunch when he had set up his own little stand at your farm store when you were running the on-farm come and get the stuff part. I got to
Yeah,
make
the one that I got
tzatziki from,
threatened with.
yeah, well, okay, the gendarmes shut it down. But first, I was able to make tzatziki from a cow that was, I mean, you want to talk about terroir, the cow, the herb from the same ground. Anyways, you guys made that happen, and I'll always be thankful. Maybe you'll get back into the yogurt business.
She's making, so we have a Jersey cow in milk now, and there's days where she literally pours it from the milk bucket into the yogurt maker, and the boys will go through about a gallon of yogurt a week.
Nice. It's so simple to make yogurt. Warm up the milk, put the culture in, let it sit. Nature does the work. All the little bugs make it happy, and it's so good. The alarm just went off, which means that, ladies and gentlemen, it is time, and others and everybody. I'm going to retire that phrase. Hey, everybody, it's time for the first quiz. And for your special prize today, now, I do love Vietnamese food, and this one is a very good. I don't know if you're into the Vietnamese kitchen, if you could see it well there, but that is what we are giving away for the first prize. Now, if you haven't done this janky thing before, because it's only done once before, the rules are: I say the question, first correct answer spelled correctly into chat. I will mail this or deliver it or carrier pigeon or something. We're all in this together. First into chat. I mean, if you have to Google it or whatever, fine, but everybody else does too. So, and nobody but me knows what the question is. So let's see here. All right. Who opened the first chicken wing restaurant in Buffalo? Oh, Brad, you were so close. All we needed was the name of an actual person. Hey, either there's some sort of internet blockage or I really? Okay.
You've stumped everybody, and we're not cheating on Google.
Go ahead. Look. I mean, look. Oh, Scotty, you wound me, Buffalo Wild Wings. You really know how to hurt a guy, Scotty. You really know how to hurt a guy. All right. Well, maybe it was a terrible question. All right, nobody wins it. That's it. I can't continue the charade. John Young opened the first chicken wing restaurant in Buffalo. He sold wings covered in mambo sauce. That part is absolutely right. Mambo sauce was a thing that he picked up when he worked in DC, District Columbia, where mambo sauce is still quite enjoyed. And he opened the first chicken wing restaurant in Buffalo. John Young's Wings and Things sold caboodles of chicken wings. And it was a couple years later that the Anchor Bar started selling their chicken wings, different thing, disjointed separately. John Young's wings were all one piece with the tip on. They're more for the gnawing. in me. I love those things too, but it's a different sport. Anyways, all right. So I guess it's time for thanks, Jen. Um, I already won my prize. I won Jen. Anyways, back to business. I'm so sorry. So it's time for four balls. Mike, are you ready to answer some questions?
Fire away.
All right. Let's see here. You return to town from the airport after a long exile. Where do you go first to eat and what do you order?
Probably going to one of our restaurant partners, This Little Pig, and getting the local cheeseburger.
Ooh, I have been there. I have done that. It is a thing, especially if he's going through his seasons where he puts pimento cheese on as an option. Yes. Okay. Name one thing you'll never eat again if you can help it and why.
Did I say it correctly? Balut, the partially um, the duck's egg where it's grown out and then pulled like 3 days before it would hatch, usually done in a consomme. That I'm gonna take a pass on.
Yes. The Filipino cuisine has balut, Balut, which is an egg that has been fertilized, and the chicken side has gone to the point of almost hatching up, but not quite, and then you eat it. You
Yep,
know what?
taking a
Steve Gedrick convinced me to try balut once, and you know what? I'm a one and done with the balut thing, so I'm with you on that. Okay. Fred says, I'm paying for you to go to dinner anywhere within an hour's drive of Buffalo City Hall. Where do you go?
Promar
What's it?
Promorset. You
Pro
said you're
Morset,
paying.
everyone. Uh, Pro Morset is a very fine Canadian restaurant about 45 minutes north of Buffalo. Pearl Morset is on a vineyard, but the restaurant is a sort of it's related operation. But the restaurant you can go to the restaurant and not go there for the vineyard. Just we went there for the restaurant, Jen and I, and yeah. So it's all Canadian ingredients, a coursed meal. Uh, if you recall, Mike, is there a particular dish that stands out for you from Pearl Morset?
The thing that I was actually most impressed with was actually so when we went, I had gotten the wine pairing with the dinner, and Steph had gotten they call it the garden pairing, which was juices, teas, tinctures, kombucha, things that they make there themselves for a non-alcoholic option. And the things that paired with the food just as well. From a food standpoint, they had a celeriac dish that had been roasted down, but they had cut the celeriac thin and then re-rolled it, and it just had these crispy scalloped edges, and it was one of the best things that I've ever eaten.
Well, holy Toledo. If I was more nimble, I could get the picture off my phone of that and show everybody, but I didn't come prepared. You know what, guys? Guys, I keep saying that. Do you know what, people, dear customers, and subscribers? I'm going to include that photograph when I do the recap that I send out for this. Another improvement coming is going to be a recap of every episode. I haven't done one for the first one yet, but it's going to include relevant photographs, links to all sorts of, it's going to annotate, it's going to give you places to dig deeper on each show. So I am going to include at least my picture of a very similar dish that you offer when I do the recap for this one. This can be sent out as a separate article to subscribers, and it'll kind of be like the filing cabinet for the show. If there's, you can go and get the things we're talking about if they're still available, is the idea. Okay. Oh man, Pearl Morset. I mean, the border is a lot better now. So I've actually started making dinner reservations over there again. Of course, got to get to Rizzo's House of Parm, Maddie Matheson's place in Fort Erie. That is definitely up, but at least it feels good to be making to be eyeing the Canadian shore and saying, "Oh, what's good over there?" There's a Thai restaurant in Fort Erie I have to get to. Okay, on with the questions.
Another one called Fat Rabbit that just opened up. Put that on your list too.
At Rabbit. Got it. Okay. Well, save the worst, the toughest one for last. And this is Buffalo, but we all got to take the bullet sometime. Mike, a genie appears and says, you can pick a chicken wing place to eat it tonight, order whatever you like. But after that, if you eat another chicken wing, you're going to die. So where are you going to go and what you going to order?
Hmm. Mm, I think I'm heading 911 Tavern and just a regular hot crispy.
You know, if that's it, that would not at all be a bad way to go. I have to agree. Thank you. Okay, everybody. Now is time for Meat Mysteries with Michael Parkot. And if you don't have questions, I can fire questions at him until we all have to go home. So believe me, I'd rather really encourage you to take the opportunity. The thing is, I am in the good position of being able to ask Mike all the questions, so many questions, and he is so patient. And I've learned, Mike, thank you. I've learned a lot from you. So let's see what we have in the. Okay. Okay, nobody has any look, if nobody has any questions for you, then I
Are we
should have
allowed,
questions.
I'll
Andrew, are we
ask.
allowed to talk or do you only want me to chat in the chat?
Oh no,
I'll
Brad,
ask a
you.
question.
No,
Brad, go
listen,
first, and then I'll jump
go
in.
ahead, please. Yeah.
Um,
You can control the show. I'm just here to watch. Go
so,
ahead. Brad, you're up. Brad
thanks.
Lollinger, everyone, an attorney who cares for elderly people.
Yes, I work at a not-for-profit, but Mike, I was so excited to see that Andrew was having you on this thing tonight because I texted Andrew a couple weeks ago because I read a New York Times article and had an epiphany about I feel terrible about the meat that I'm eating, and it's one of those things where the scales fall off your eyes when you see what the massive meat production system is. And so for about a month, I'm like, I know I'll become a vegetarian and I'll just do that. And then I realized there's no way I can do that for the rest of my life. So I want to say, number one, I respect the hell out of you for what you're doing. And two, are you finding this is something that people are interested in? Because it's something where if I'm going to go, I'm trying to figure out a way, like Andrew's talking about, to if I'm going to eat meat, I'm going to eat maybe less of it, but when I do it, come to a place like you and get it. So, are you finding that this is something where more people are realizing that this is the way that we ought to be doing things?
I think people are coming around to it, but so I mean, even going back like 7, 8, 10 years ago, they actually came up with I mean, not to put you in a box or a label with it, but they came up with the term ethical omnivore. And what that entails is the ethics that go into your food, talking to the small producers and raisers, making that available to people. It's definitely something that people are interested in and people are coming around to. And the thing is, though, is like, I mean, there's always that constant battle of ethics versus price point and purchasing food from a small scale farmer in the economies of scale with things like access to processing labor and a multitude of like the other issues that are there for small producers and small farmers. It winds up making the food unaffordable for some people, but also it's like you said, the things that matter, like for those consumers who do have the means, and the possibility that things can scale to the point that it becomes more affordable and other things. Like, I mean, those are all things that we haven't seen come full circle yet. But the general interest of sourcing locally is definitely out there. And I think some people, it's tough because I mean, it looked like we were hitting this like top of the roller coaster moment, like when the pandemic happened, and like because there was just so many disruptions with the supply chain, but also other things like where people were seeing like a lack of meat in grocery stores. um the markets that Andrew alluded to, like I mean, we had people showing up in force. Like I was afraid the sheriffs were going to show up for that, but just turned out to be our code enforcement officer. um but like that interest is there. People have in a lot of ways gone back to like their normal purchasing, which is really like people are sourcing food from a convenience standpoint. So going to a grocery store, you've got all your produce, you've got your meat, you've got your dry goods, your pantry goods, paper products, all those things all under one roof. And most of us, like the small farms, do not have the bandwidth to do all those things. And it's an evolving landscape. But there are a lot of small local farmers who are just literally gearing up and wanting to meet people and connect with customers and put this really high quality food on their plate or in their freezer or at a restaurant that they're going to be going out to eat at. So the interest
Is
is
some
there.
of is some of this us as people who are subscribers for Andrews for Bites and evangelizing about how important this sort of thing is, so that we're supporting local farmers like you, and um, it just makes that difference, right? That chicken tastes so much more different and better than what people think chicken tastes like.
Hey, Missy.
Hey, so fun to hang out with two friends here and everybody else. Um, nice to see you all. I had kind of a fun, playful question, Mike, and that is barring, ignoring logistical things, because having a farm myself, I know there's a lot of logistical considerations, but if you could add any other meat animal to the list of what you raise, what would it be?
Um,
If you didn't have to deal with like the logistics of
the,
it
the
working out and all that stuff.
I would probably go with heritage breed turkeys.
Mm, great. Let me know. Sign me up
They're
when you do.
they're it's like a whole different animal and they range better, but they also have a lot more flavor, but it's not what's commercially marketed. So I mean, it would just
Correct.
there would be like a whole bunch of hurdles and with customers and things like that, but I think the flavor would be enough to keep people engaged.
Certainly. I would agree with you. Thanks.
Oh, righty then. Devin.
Hey, so I'm a rule follower, so I put my question in the chat. But it is often I go out to eat and I'm looking at menus at restaurants who are of the farm to table variety, and I see names of farms listed. Um, and I know for a fact that those restaurants have not bought from that farm in quite some time. So how do you feel about that? And as a farmer, dear friend Mike, how do you address it?
So I've encountered that personally once, and um, that was something that felt somewhat confrontational with me. And, or actually, I should take that back. I should say I've encountered that twice. One person had made a just a error that they thought that our the pork skin that they were buying was from our farm from a local butcher, and it indeed was not. So that was an error that was just easily corrected. The other one was somebody who ran pork chops and told me that they were selling really well and they were blowing through them, but they had bought 20 retail pork chops and they had it as the always something farm pork chop on their menu for 3.5 weeks. So, I mean, on a busy weekend, if it's really selling that well, they should have blown through that the first weekend. Um, I also saw pictures that they were posting and saying that that was our pork. And I mean, to me, I mean, it just feels like a certain level of dishonesty with your customers. but also that you're putting something out there that's coming through commodity channels and claiming that it's mine. So, I mean, it also really does potentially cripple what I'm doing and the type of food with the integrity that I'm trying to put out there. That I actually specifically went because it did feel confrontational. That was not something I was doing via email or text. I went and said, "Hey, look, not for nothing, but this." Pardon my poor English there, but I went in and I said, "Look, this isn't cool what you're doing, and I would appreciate it if you would take my name off the menu because I can look at that pork chop and tell you it's not from one of my pigs." And the people that have been following us, like there were other people that were screenshotting his picture and sending it to me, and I said, "Absolutely not. That pale, mealy, giant loin without any fat on it is definitely not one of mine." And that's been the two times that I've had to deal with that. I know a lot of other farmers who've been in the game longer than I have had to deal with it. And I mean, other than, I think most people want to avoid that confrontation. So those restaurants, if you go to them and call them out on it, they are, especially if you are the farmer, that's well within your rights to do and ask them to stop using you to promote themselves, especially if they're not using you or utilizing your product in some way, shape, or form. So and the other thing is like other farmers, I think will back that up. And I mean, it's not to the point that I don't think it's ever been bad to the point that people would refuse to take product in just based on the ethics of that, like where you're falsely promoting that you're a farm to table restaurant. But then again, most of the farmers are pretty disjointed and everybody's just in such chaos survival mode most of the time that they're not banding together to say, you know what, let's all stop working with this person who's lying about what we're doing. Things haven't gotten to that point. Do I think it would be cool if everybody had each other's back and just called people out on that? Or said, you know what, until you're doing that, please take my name off your menu. And if it still fails, I don't know how most people are going to react to that. I mean, I've
Mike,
never
you
had to
left out
publicly say it.
Mike, you left out the best part, of course. Mike, when you told him or her or them or whatever, when you told them that, what was their response?
Um, there was kind of like some backpedaling. There was, oh, well, I didn't think you had anything more to sell me or any more chops to sell, and I didn't want to just take you off the menu. And I just said, I've been texting you every week to ask you if you've needed more for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and you haven't responded. So, I mean, I can see you have an iPhone. I can see that you read the message, but you're not responding. So it was uncomfortable for a minute, but they agreed to take it off and they did.
Then your principled objection was effective then, right?
It was. I mean, it was taken off like that day. And
Um, I personally, as I guess I should mention this, as a restaurant critic, if you list farms on your menu, purveyors include, in order to bite on some of the farm to table cred, you should know that if I'm going to consider reviewing your restaurant, I'm going to check to see how updated that list is. And I understand things change and things are different. But the two times I found people who had a higher than 50% rate of farms mentioned not actually selling them stuff, I wouldn't review their place because if they're not going to be honest about that, I mean, what happens in the kitchen? They showed you the menu. I mean, come on. Okay, Scotty has a question. Scotty.
Um, yeah, it's kind of an observation and a question.
Is this
First
going
of
to
all,
sound better in the original Klingon?
doch, tachit, doch.
Okay, sorry. Go
Right.
ahead.
Anyway, for those of you who don't know me, I spent most of the last 15 years teaching cooking at high school and college level. And Andrew was picking on me for the backgrounds. Those are what I did to keep the kids interested when I was teaching cooking over the internet during COVID. Anyway.
Scotty, I am going to ask you how to do that so nobody has to look at what's behind me, but go ahead.
Okay, we'll work on that. I'm going to see you soon. My question for Michael is one of the things that I tried to get across to my students is that in most places around the world, the animal proteins, the meat, is treated more as a condiment than as the entree. And when people talk to me about the cost of purchasing the good stuff like you produce, I always say to them is you don't have to eat 18 ounces at a sitting. When you have interactions with people about your food, how do you talk to them about the fact that they shouldn't get bowled over by the cost of the meat product itself, but need to think about it in the context of their entire diet and how they're eating stuff like that? Sounds a little esoteric, but I know you'll deal with it.
Yeah, it's actually a great point and a great question. And a lot of people talk about the cost of it. And I actually will specifically say that we as a society, and I mean, even my own family too, like, I mean, we eat way too much meat. Like, I mean, but the thing is, like, can we eat better meat that is going, like, we should be eating less meat, but we should be eating better meat. Like, I mean, the things that we're starting to
Absolutely.
see locally, like people that are really focusing on the sustainability aspect of like the meat production, like places that are using retired dairy cows that they're giving a little rest and a break, and then they're turning around and having them butchered. Like, I mean, you want to talk about food production. You've got a cow that's produced 20,000 pounds of milk and now is producing a 800 to 900 pound carcass that is going to be some of the best beef you've ever had. But because of mass marketing and things like that, you've been told that it's not any good. So, like, I mean, little shout out to my friend Jill at Butter Meat Company out in Perry. If you haven't checked them out, worth a ride. But like, you have people that are starting to do those things, and the education aspect, and people also don't understand portion sizes because, I mean, that's one of the first things you see. Like, if you look at people talking about when they went out to dinner, oh, I had a fish fry that both sides of it were hanging off of the plate. I had this, and I had enough to take home for lunch the next day. Like, a lot of these things, like, you're getting, and I mean, even if you look at the quality of it, like, I mean, we could go on and on about this for days, but even just like with beef, like in the last 40 years, you have a 30% decrease in the amount of iron that's in beef based on the way that they're fed and the fact that the animals are pushed through to slaughter at 18 months rather than at 24 to 30. So like, and
I'll let me actually put something else out there because you just brushed on it. If you take an 8-ounce New York strip steak and you put it on somebody's plate at dinner at your house, they're going to try to do their best to eat through the whole thing. If you take that same steak and serve it already sliced across, you may find people eating 2 or 3 slices with everything else. And so you're correct. The portion size is important.
no, it absolutely is. And people don't realize, like, I mean, the portion size for most things is written to be like, I mean, your food pyramid, whether you want to accept it or not, is government propaganda, where it's upside down on a lot of things, but like protein servings, protein sizes, the amount of fats and things, like everything has been manipulated around with food. But in general, yeah, we definitely eat way too much meat. But we could eat better meat and still spend the same amount of money on smaller portions that are going to be more nutritionally complete and taste better.
Thanks.
Hey, fun life question, Mike. Devin, come on, or unless you're being shy, I'll read it, but go ahead if you want to do it.
I'm never shy.
Good.
I'm curious to know, what's the last thing you did on the farm that Stephanie damn near killed you for?
That was probably only like an hour ago, but
That's
yeah.
why that's why I want the most recent.
Damn near killed me for. It's actually been a minute. Like, I mean, since I started getting medicated for the ADHD and I'm
So you're
aware of
due,
things
is what
now.
you're saying.
No, I mean, like, today was a day. So I bought Stephanie a horse and we went out and picked it up today. And of course, the fencer shorted out and the pigs were over by Oles. So they made it about 3/4 of a mile through the woods. The county sheriff was nice enough to help with the animal control officer, and then they pushed them back to the farm where our babysitter and then another neighbor helped get them into a pasture. So I mean, she wasn't too mad about that one, but it's really been a while since I've done something egregious enough. Like if she wasn't putting the kids to bed, I'd ask her what the last thing was. There's been, I think the last really bad one was when I donated a on-farm dinner with Rube Buckley from the Cook's tour, and they came and ate at our house, and we had a 4-month-old. That was poor thinking and poor planning on my part because we took over the entire house to do this dinner.
Which was not repeated.
No, sir.
Man learns from his mistakes. So, absent another question, I have a question, and it's a quiz question. And whoever wins gets a $25 gift certificate to Moriarty Bar Cafe. Cafe Bar Moriarty actually is the name, where you will find my favorite beef omelet in town and so many things that will remind you of that little place in Barcelona you used to love. And it's right next to the only butcher store in Buffalo. There are other custom cutters, I have learned, but it's the only place in Buffalo you can go to and get cuts of meat, of beef especially, that you cannot get anyplace else, because Moriarty, even though he's from Buffalo, he went to Paris and learned how to be an actual French trained butcher. And why they say a French trained butcher in the trade, that's somebody who knows how to take a cow apart muscle by muscle. The French have all got all these cute names for this little, all these different pieces of meat, all these different muscles, and they're good cooking in different ways. And if you walk into Cafe Bar Moriarty on Elmwood Avenue, you can check out all sorts of French names for different beef cuts that you never saw before. And they are Moriarty is where I go when I want to buy beef to impress my mom or anybody else important, because you can get picanha there, which is a cut of top sirloin favored by Brazilians and anybody else who loves beef. Because if you cook it right and you cut it, there are going to be pictures of later. I'm sorry to do this to you. If you cook it right and cut it, you get rosy red, juicy steak that's got this rim of fat that's crispy on the edge. Some people pull it off. I don't myself personally. But if you want to cook that type of beef, you got to go to Moriarty. So, okay, ramble, ramble, ramble. The question. Sort of fruit is the condiment amba, A-M-B-A, made from? Fruit. Yeah, fruit. I'm glad you heard me correctly. It is not banana, in fact. There are types of banana ketchup that I've heard of that are lovely. I've had a few. It is not tamarind or kumquat. So, na, 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 na. I'm sorry, not pawpaw. Have you guys never had amba? Here's where you can go and get amba. This is where I run into it personally. Two places. One, falafel bar. There's an Israeli sandwich called sabich. I say it that way because if I don't, Odit gets mad. It's sabich. Odit is Israeli, and you got to do it right. So sabich is this genius sandwich of it's a like a falafel sandwich. It's in a pita. So there's salad and there's falafel in it, but also fried eggplant, chopped hard boiled egg, and amba, which is a sort of sauce that's the flavorings might remind you of some Indian stuff. It comes through Tunisia. So it's a Northern African thing, actually. Uh, right, because I can't take this anymore. Amba is made from mango, people, usually green mango. And they puree it and cook it with all the other spices. Well, that's good. I'll save that prize for next show and see who shows up then for it. Maybe if I give you guys, notice on Sunday of what's happening on Monday next time, more people will know about this. And I apologize for the whole cram thing, but I feel like it was a decent conversation. Learned some things. And I promise you it will get better next week, little bit by little bit. You don't want to get too great too fast because then everybody gets bored, right? So, does anyone, before we go, you've made it here, you've learned some stuff about meat. Oh, wait, I never asked you wait, one more. I never asked you the question I put in the graphic. Hey, Mike, walk me through it. Why does your chicken cost $15 when I can get breast for 99? Break it down for me.
To do it on a fast level, the cost of feed is going to be much higher for me, where I'm buying 200 to 300 pounds at a time, as opposed to somebody that's buying 2 to 3 rail cars at a time. Then you've got your daily labor, where most of your large production most of your production poultry houses, everything is automated, so you do not have anything that goes into that.
What, you
Now,
mean chickens raised by robots?
You already are, man. You've been doing that for years.
Explain. Okay, go on. I'm sorry.
You actually, one of the companies from 43 North that made the finals is a broiler production AI program that gives you measurements on size so you can track growth. But I digress. Going back to that, then you've got your processing cost. You have, if you are not processing your own poultry at this point in Western New York, you're looking at anywhere between $3 to $4 per bird to get them done. Wow. On top of that, it's really economies of scale. The other thing is when a lot of people don't know is that commercial poultry processing and the cuts that you're seeing in the grocery store are the result of it being a salvage operation. So when you run everything on automation, where you literally have a pincher that goes in to eviscerate a chicken and it ruptures the gut, contaminates the entire carcass and rips it out, or it gets beat up in the tumbler, the chiller that also goes around and around and bangs the muscle around so that it actually opens up and retains more water. That's why when you cook a chicken from the grocery store, you get about 30 to 35% weight loss and evaporation from it. Ours, usually the ones that I've done and got nerdy with and weighed, lost about 10 to 12% of their weight in the cooking process. So the thing is, like, and sometimes you'll see it's even part of the mechanization and the way that they're industrial processed with the machinery. So next time you go and you look and you see like the packs of leg quarters that are all packed together, or that's like the easiest one to see, or breasts, you'll notice that they're all from the same side of the chicken when you look at them. So like bone and split breasts, they all look the same because they're all from the same side of the chicken. The only chickens that have not made it through that process that you're buying in the grocery store unmolested are the roasters. And unless they're on sale, that's why they're at a higher price point than anything else, because that's actually your premium bird at a grocery store. So labor cost, economy of scale, daily labor. I don't buy 25,000 chicks at a time. The most I've ever bought is 100. So the pricing on that, and it's just more and more of those things. Like the scaling of it for small producers is an extremely difficult thing. So
excuse me for jumping in, but you also have to think about the places that inject stuff into the commercial chickens so that they have like a higher moisture content and look plumper. But when you cook them, all that stuff comes out.
Well, a certain amount of that is allowed under federal meat regulations.
Understood, but
no, for better for worse.
Saltwater.
But that's why you always read the label, because when you're buying a turkey, you're buying 5% salt water. So just figure that in. And listen, this has been a great conversation. Despite my best efforts, someone might have learned something about meat tonight or meat production. So I just have one more question, Mike. And then if anybody has anything else, so then we can wrap up. Mike, do your boys know how to clean a chicken?
Actually, my 7-year-old, that's his side hustle and how he makes money to buy Pokemon cards because I won't pay for him anymore. They've
Pay your
all been
7-year-old
involved in.
to clean the chickens?
Oh no, he charges other people. Like they show up, I have the equipment, and I supervise him and I help him, but he will go through, and that's also how he learned how to multiply on homeschool.
The kids are
That's how
amazing. They're
th-
really amazing kids.
that's how I mean, that's how you make $1 million at 7 years old. You open a chicken cleaning business, and wow, he's already got the business bug. And I don't know if we weren't by it before, but just to remind you guys, when I made the heavenly tzatziki from Always Something Farm, it was that his kid had a hustle, and he sold me a bundle of chives for them that had been picked on the property. So you're raising some business then, Mike, and I know she's not here right now, but I hope she's listening. God bless Stephanie Parkot. And you too, Mike. You too. It's the two of you. It's the magic. Thank
She
you so
definitely
much.
deserves it.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Uh, Look in the chat here.
That's my last
Um,
question, Mike. If I wanted to get something from you, I just should call or email you and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, that's the best way to go.
do you want to call you to,
And
for
that's my
instance, if
phone
you were
number and
interested in
that's my
buying meat?
email. And
Yeah, he is a meat farmer. He doesn't have like the world available, but you can make meat appointments. You're like, I'd get hour some more or less, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't speak for you. Mike, what's the best way to buy meat for you?
actually, he's got my number. Also, we're going to be updating and we're working on some changes with the website. Um, we haven't put it out there into the ethers yet, but we are taking orders for the end of February and March on whole and half hogs. So if you have the freezer space and you want to stock up or you want to distribute amongst family members, we're going to be running through a bunch then. And this year we're debating whether or not we're going to be doing some poultry or trying to go up on lamb numbers from last year. And then we're going to be just raising some pigs. We're no longer breeding the pigs, but buying them from other local farmers and supporting them. And it took us a while, but we kind of found out this steady state and sustainability and regular reoccurring sales. And we're kind of like in a reboot year ourselves. And this is really the way forward for us. And we really just hope to keep community connections and work with people and get good food into their freezers.
One more. I'm sorry, one more, and it's out. It has been my observation, Mike, in the past that when somebody calls you and you ain't got what they're looking for, you usually are pretty good about saying, "Hey, I know somebody," and passing them on. So if you can't find somebody, would you be willing to help hook them up with the right people to get their freezer full?
Oh, I have absolutely no problem with referring to people. I mean, that's one of the things like making those connections, connecting dots. Our local small agriculture community is one of the most interesting things that has happened. Excuse me, it's almost like I had a stroke today. That has happened in the past like year or so is we're seeing so much more collaboration over competition where people are really pushing one another. Like, I mean, everybody's shouting each other out on social media. Farmers are supporting one another. Like, this person's buying a half a hog from me, so I'm gonna buy a vegetable CSA from them, or this guy's raising turkeys and I'm going to take four, but then everybody that's calling me that wants a turkey, I'm giving them his number. And I'm happy to provide and like try to hook people up like with what they're looking for or give them a nudge in the right direction to somebody that I know or somebody that I've heard is doing things the right way, in my biased opinion.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you, all the rest of us, all the rest of us. Thank you for joining all of us here, all of us. I'll get it right sooner or later. I'm just glad anybody showed up. You guys are great. He's great. And next week, a little more great, maybe. Thank you very much. And have a good night, everyone.
Good to see you, Mike.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye,
Mike.
Scotty.
Thanks,
Bye,
Andrew.
Devin. Bye, Missy. Bye, other people I haven't met yet.